Hey everybody, Tom Barnes, stories from the 78 going back down to Pullman. Always something happening in Pullman, from tours to events, stuff at the National Park there. Specifically this time, the Historic Pullman House Tour. I have my friend Alfonso here to talk all about it. How are you?
I'm all right, Tom. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And where am I talking to you from? Are you down in Pullman, or are you in an area outside of it and doing the whole thing?
I'm actually in Queens, New York. I live in
Oh,
New York
a
City.
little bit further away than Pullman.
It's a little bit of a distance. It's a little bit of a distance, but not too bad. Not too bad.
Oh, you guys got to be excited with the New York Mets making the playoffs yesterday. I think they called Queens home.
Everyone is talking about it. Certainly, everyone is talking about it, and in our household, everyone is talking about the historic Pullman House Tour. I'll tell you that. So it's the Mets and the House Tour.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the house tour is it's coming up here October 12th and 13th. From 11 to 5 o'clock in the afternoon in the historic Pullman neighborhood. Pullman, I mean, is one of the most historic neighborhoods in the country, let alone Chicago. But I feel like it's still kind of, maybe perhaps changing a little bit, but still kind of this hidden gem within the city. When people find it, they fall in love with it. Can you kind of give me a little example of what people do when they do go on these tours?
Yeah, so the Historic Pullman House Tour is the oldest house tour in the city of Chicago. We're 51 years old. It's going to be held on October 12th and 13th of this year. And as you said, from 11 to 5. And basically, what it is that one weekend each year, Pullman residents open their homes to the public. And these are 140-year-old landmark homes.
Hmm.
They range in different sizes from large executive homes to 14-foot wide workers' cottages and even multi-unit apartments. And they all have the charm and uniqueness that is all part of the Pullman experience. And what people can do is that they can purchase their tickets at pullmanhousetour.com. They can come on tour, and what they can do is they can see the way that people live today. They can walk inside the homes. They can see how people have decorated their homes, how they've maybe restored their homes in some cases. It's a really fascinating look at the way people have sort of renovated or restored these homes. Now, just to give you a little background, Tom, this neighborhood was built in 1881 by George Pullman, who
Hmm.
created luxurious train cars. And it was a revolutionary type of industry at that point. And they traveled all around the globe and all around the United States. And what he did is that he wanted to create a village or a town for his workers to live in. And so he had the factory on one side of 111th Street, and then he
Right.
had all the residents on the other side. And he had the people that were creating these luxurious train cars that were very detailed. They were artisans that created these train cars. He actually had them go over and create the homes as well. So when you walk into a home, you're walking into a 140-year-old residence that was created by an artisan that created these train cars. And what has happened over the last 100 years is that some people have restored their homes and some people have actually renovated them so that they're modern units. They have artwork and they're completely modern. This is the biggest event of the year. We're co-sponsored by the Historic Pullman Foundation and the Pullman Civic Organization. And Tom, the best thing about this is that a large portion of the proceeds actually go to grants to help homeowners restore the exteriors of the homes. So that's the best part of this whole thing.
Yeah, and I think people will know if they've ever been to Pullman, the houses in Pullman have a certain look to them. And that look is kind of preserved where when you go to renovate or upgrade, you kind of have to upgrade the outside of the house to keep it within that framework that makes it historical. And I've worked we were talking before we got started here. I worked with an organization called Pullman Tech Workshop that educates folks on how to do that properly up to the specifications, like on a porch or something in Pullman, because it is that artisanal work that you were speaking about, which now it makes complete sense, but nobody's ever actually said the people that were making these beautiful cars that are in like the Smithsonian and what have you and littered throughout history, we're also making the houses. I didn't know that. And I've done like 12 stories on Pullman over the years, and it never dawned on me that it's probably the same people, which makes sense, though, of why these houses are so historically beautiful and why Pullman is so uniquely different in Chicago.
That's it. That's absolutely right. I mean, one of the more simpler ways to sort of look at it is that when you do visit house tour over the weekend of the 12th and 13th, you'll notice that there's a Pullman color, and it's basically like a dark olive green
Yep.
color. And the reason why that is a dark olive green is because a lot of the early train cars, the exteriors were dark olive green. So they used the same paint for the homes that they did on the trains, or at least the same color. So when people are able to go through, they're able to really step into history. It's sort of like walking into a time machine and going back. And people can find out information about the tour at pullmanhousetour.com. But Tom, I do have a couple standouts that I wanted to
Yeah,
share with
for
you. A
sure.
couple of the homes that I think are really amazing. So as I said, there's a real range of them. There's several homes that are going to be open on October 12th and 13th. One of them is an executive house, and they actually have a third floor ballroom.
Oh, I
Now that's
love that
crazy. I
stuff.
mean, I can imagine you and I don't have a ballroom in the third floor of our home,
No.
but the man or the family that lived there at some point wanted to install an area where people could dance and where they could set up a little tiny orchestra. Now it's not a super large ballroom.
Hey, but it's
It's
a
a small,
ballroom.
but I mean, who has a ballroom in their homes these days unless your name is
Yeah.
Vanderbilt? So it's
Right.
it's really really cool, and they are on tour as well. That's sort of my first pick for this year. The second one is really interesting as well. It's a home that is operated by the Pullman House Project, and this is a group that has purchased and restored homes in the neighborhood to very specific times. They have one for 1880s. They have one for
Mm.
actually 1960s, and their role is to tell the stories of some of the Pullman workers through their homes. It's a little bit like the Tenement Museum in New York City, if you've ever heard of it. It's sort
Yeah.
of Chicago's version of the Tenement Museum. And what they have opened up is the Honeymoon Row unit. And what you can do is you can step into this home, and this is actually stepping back into 1880. And you can see the way that people lived back then. They have old coal stove. They have they're two bedrooms. But the really coolest thing is back in 1880, people didn't have bathrooms in their homes or in their apartments, I should say. You had to actually go out into the hallway, and there was a
Mm.
line of stalls where you would use the restroom. And the reason why that group purchased this house is because they walked in and they saw the original bathrooms in the toilets that
Wow.
were in the hallway, and they said, "This is amazing. You don't really see this these days." And so
I
it's
didn't know
got the
that
large
either.
box on the top and the pull chain, and it's really quite something to see. But that's the way that they did it these days. And I will tell you, even though they didn't have toilets in the bathroom, these homes that were built 140 years ago were revolutionary. There was
Yeah.
nothing like this. Workers did not live in a brick house with good ventilation and good light, with a school down the block and a place where you could go buy fruits and vegetables and you could actually walk to work. That did not happen. So these homes were really revolutionary at this time. The third house that I wanted to suggest to you, Tom, to go see when you go on house tour is the Langley Block House. Now, this is a larger brick building, sort of a tenement that was for unskilled laborers. And what some organizers have done is that they've restored it and they've rebuilt a section in the middle for apartments for artists. And so
Wow.
it's called Pullman Arts, and they have a gallery. They're going to be showing a 5-year retrospective on Lee Bay's book. He's an architecture critic, and it's called Southern Exposure. His book is called Southern Exposure, and they're going to be having these beautiful photos up, and that's really a highlight of the tour. So those are my three picks for my favorite houses for this year's house tour.
Yeah, and it just gives you an excuse to go down to Pullman and enjoy the area that is with the national park there. We get to go inside that museum that you were talking about, where they show the Pullman rail cars and the history of that. That I mean, Pullman is just like this neighborhood that for years, people just didn't. It wasn't in the lexicon of talking about neighborhoods, but in the last like few years, it's definitely come up where people make the effort to go down. They have the railroad days that they have in Pullman, where you can take the train still and get down in Pullman. I mean, what is it, like 111th Street is like where the train station is, or right around there that way. But a lot of fun things happening in Pullman. And I read in one of the articles here that some people have gone on these house tours and said, "I'm moving here, I'm living here," which I just think is awesome because that's the whole point, right?
That is the whole point. I mean, that is something that we're so proud of, that people come down there and they love the neighborhood so much, and they realize that there's great transportation, it's safe, there's a very large neighborhoody feel to it. It is sort of like a small town, but you are right that we've sort of been a hidden gem for a big part of the city. My family actually came to Pullman back in 1906, and they started
Wow.
building train cars back in 1906. So this has been a part of my family for many, many generations. So it's funny, somebody had asked me, hey, did you ever think that your neighborhood would become a national park? And I always say, yes, I did. There's no doubt about it. I've always known it. I've always been talking about it. So it's no surprise to me that this is a real special place.
It absolutely is. And again, the event happens October 12th and 13th. That is a Saturday, Sunday from 11 to 5 o'clock. And tickets are at PullmanHouseTour.com, correct?
That's right. That's right. And also, there's a great places to eat. We have a Potbelly, a Wingstop, Lexington Betty's if you want
That place
barbecue.
is amazing, Lexington
Absolutely.
Betty's. Yeah, the
And one
food
of
scene's
one of
starting to pop off.
absolutely one of the my favorite places is the Pullman Club Coffee Shop. We have a couple people that restored one of those executive houses, one of the executive mansions, and they completely restored it to a coffee shop. So you could get to go in there and drink some caffeinated beverages and have some pastries as well.
And folks who are not familiar with Pullman area, it's like kind of right next to, it's east of Roseland. In Roseland, you have the donut shop there too. So you can make a whole afternoon of it, of going to visit houses, the coffee shop, Lexington Betty's, and then find your way throughout the South Side. There's a lot of gems on Chicago's South Side, and the media perhaps gives it another, looks at it in a different light. But there's so much good, there's so much fun in the people. My family's from the South Side, so
I
we're
knew I
we're
liked you. I
I
knew I
know we're
liked you.
cousins in a way, I guess. Southsiders, they love talking about the South Side because it's just so underrepresented. So, Alfonso, thank you so much for taking time to chat with me. And I always dig and love talking about Pullman.
Thank you, Tom. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.